Greetings and salutations, folks. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's second bonus. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks, well, they're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share this video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second bonus, shall we? I spoke to a gentleman that lives in San Bernardino, California, and he had discussed a little bit about the homeless people in San Bernardino region and their dealings with dogmen. That conversation got brought up because of a subscriber who had went to Jimtown Road, which is in Cott County, Tennessee, Newport, Tennessee, about a year after Tony Aarons and Amber Miller had been tragically torn apart and both lost their lives. The media and local police both blamed it on a gentleman and his dogs, which he had no dogs at one. He was a dog trainer at one point, but when these attacks happened, it was years later. You know, he had a few dogs, or relatives had a few dogs at his ex-girlfriend's or ex-wife's house, which was like 5 miles down the road. And it was a tragic attack, April 1st and June 28th, I believe, off the top of my head. But both attacked in the same location, and huge canine prints found in the dirt, both partially consumed, really torn apart. And when I say torn apart, I mean their limbs were off of their bodies or barely hanging on. And a subscriber had went down there because I had been really pushing buttons. Armando Fuentes, the acting sheriff at the time, I was really pushing his buttons, and the deputy at the time, I think is CJ Ball, just, wanting answers. Hey, why is this man in jail when clearly he didn't do it? He was the 911 caller for the first incident, and he wasn't even around for the second. And then you keep, hassling this poor man. Yeah, he had a criminal background. Excuse me. But he was doing like, he had issues with his ex-wife. They had a domestic, couple marijuana charges. But in Tennessee, marijuana is still illegal statewide, I guess. So they put him in jail for like a 1/4 ounce of weed, which is unbelievable. And they really demonized him. And then they demonized Amber Miller and Tony Aarons. Both. Armando Fuentes said, the reason why Tony Aarons was attacked was because he had meth in his blood. And so did Amber Miller. And she was a bad mom. She had a CPS call on her. Her dad was a great guy. He was a police officer, died on duty, but she's just a bad seed. You know, really raking these poor people and their families through the coals because the media nor law enforcement wanted to tell the truth. You know, hey, there are creatures in these woods. And so a subscriber, excuse me, a subscriber had taken his motorcycle and went on a ride. He lived about an hour from Newport, Tennessee. And he had driven down Jimtown Road. I've Google searched it and, you know, went down the road myself. Not in real time, but just to see what the area looks like. And it is a remote, desolate area. And there was a homeless population, like a homeless encampment at the end of this road. Well, he takes his motorcycle down there one day and he gets there a couple hours before it's dark. Drives down, finds the encampment and meets somebody that's willing to talk with him. And they're talking and he asks some questions about, have you seen anything in these woods? This, and that. And what was told to him was, hey, you might want to get back on your motorcycle right now and get out of this area as quickly as possible because it's starting to get dark and these things will come out of the woods and rip you off of your bike. Like they will just... And I had known there was an encampment back there because there was something in the news talking about it. They had actually, law enforcement had looked at this small encampment to see if they had any involvement in these attacks. You know, apparently homeless people can, you know, savagely rip apart a body just like a wild creature. And they have canine-like feet that are huge. So immediately this subscriber is like, holy crap. And we started talking and law enforcement knew this encampment was down there. Now, since that time and now, actually last summer, they had moved the encampment. The encampment is no longer there. Whether that be out of safety concerns for the homeless population there or liability just in case someone else gets killed down in that area. But either way, it is no longer there. So I am a firm believer, and I've talked about this quite many times, that I believe that these creatures, Dogmen, Bigfoot, whatnot, are attracted to certain elements that the human population has. Like they can sense and feed off of our pain. You know, I said it a day or two ago that people with addiction have had probably a 70% chance higher, you know, a 70% higher chance of seeing one of these creatures than someone who doesn't have addiction issues. And that's just from interviewing and talking to different people, you know, doing the math. And mental health is another large one. And I'm not saying every person who has addiction issues has had an experience. No. I have 9 years in sobriety. It'll be 10 actually. And actually it's 9 this year. My cat's going to be. So April 4th, 2016 is my sobriety date. But I believe that I had my experience because, I had some demons going on and issues going on. And I think it's interesting that, ironically enough, the media uses people's, Christopher Whiteley was another case of a gentleman who, not a homeless gentleman, but a gentleman who was torn apart in Lippin, Texas. He had addiction issues. He had law issues. And let me tell you, the media really let us know. So I believe that these creatures have an attraction to people of addiction issues and mental illness and any kind of tragic or tragedy. For some reason they are attracted to this. So that now brings us to the couple that I spoke to last night. They were homeless in 2021. Actually, 2020, the end of 2020, right up until the beginning of 2022. And where they lived was a very remote area in California. The Santa Cruz County government pushed an encampment further out into the wooded area and mountainous area. And we'll get into that right now. So this couple that I spoke to last night reached out to me via email, and it was part of the list that I had gone through and people that I'm going to reach out to and talk with. They had moved to Santa Cruz, California, back in 2018 from a little podunk town in Indiana. The gentleman that I spoke to, his name is Randy, and he is 35 right now. At the time of his experience, he was 32 years old, and his fiance, Sam or Samantha, was 29 at the time of the experience. She's now 32. Back when the world had closed down and everything kind of just ceased, many of you know that California was one of those states that really locked everything down. And a lot of people lost, their homes, their savings, everything because of that. And he and his fiance both worked at the same restaurant they had worked at for since they moved from Indiana to Santa Cruz. He was a head chef. He had actually gone to culinary school back in the day. That was a big reason why they moved from Indiana to California, was to take advantage of his cooking skills. And there weren't too many restaurants of his cooking caliber in Indiana where he's from. So they move out here or out there, and they, have some savings, beautiful apartment, nothing like extraordinarily. They were not rich. They were, living hand to mouth or whatever it is, check to check pretty much, but they were comfortable. It's basically what everybody does in America, unless you are that 1%. We all have to worry about bills and this and that. So at no part in their lives that they had established did they think that, a pandemic is going to hit and the world is going to stop and they're going to lose everything. And that's exactly what happened. And because of not being from California and not having family that lived there, not having very many friends, just pretty much each other. That's pretty much who they relied on, was each other, that they did lose everything. They were evicted from their apartment. They didn't have family to go and crash with. And at that time, there was some homeless encampments popping up in the little city of Santa Cruz. They had tried to live the best they could. And that's another thing that he and she both wanted to make everyone aware of, is there were no addiction issues. There was no alcoholism. Maybe depression, obviously. Who wouldn't be depressed? You have a decent life, and then, because of a state you chose to move to, doesn't know how to handle business, that you lose everything. So they are in a tent. The encampment that they kind of hooked up with or found there was about 60 people. There was a few people like them in their situations. And then obviously there are going to be the, I guess, stereotypical drug addicted, kind of not really caring, whatnot, homeless. And, never in a million years did Randy or Sam think that they were going to end up in this predicament. So here they are, living in this little encampment. They have met, apparently there was some county workers from Santa Cruz County coming in the area, helping out, talking with people, and that wanted to help and such, which Randy now 100% believes was a show, playing with mirrors, just because these people came into these encampments and acted like they cared. We care about you. Oh, what are your skills? What this and what that? Do you use marijuana? Do you use hard drugs? Do you drink? Do you beat your wife? Yada, yada, yada. All the questions. And, like I said, and he said, there were a few people that were just like them. And there was a family, an actual family, a boy and a little girl, and mom and dad that were kind of right up to where Randy and Sam's tent was, and a few other people that were kind of segregated from the other, I guess, stereotypical drug using, criminal, violent, people that, even though Randy and his wife or fiance were homeless, they had to, they were different. And he said that with you could hear pain in his heart and hers, because, we all could be there at any moment, unless we are that 1%, something could happen and we lose everything. But there are those few that just either act like they don't care or don't care, and will participate in crime, will, steal from people in the same predicament they are in. So there's a few people that had jobs and lost everything. This one family that was next to Randy and Sam, they really connected with. And this caseworker would come in once a week and talk with everybody and build a rapport.
Randy had to wait to get a job because of everything's on lockdown. And so for some reason, because of the amount of money they had made during the past, they did not qualify for any assistance from the county for up to 3 months or something. They had to wait 3 months without having a cent to their name, without having any food, with nothing, before the county would help, because they made X amount prior to, which was just enough to pay their bills, put food in the house, and maybe periodically, go out to dinner or do something, out of the ordinary with whatever little bit of money they had. They had a little bit of savings, so they blew through it, trying to live during this time. And this caseworker kept coming in, making friends with the people that they deemed fit. And it was right about fall of 2021 when this caseworker came down and said to Sam and Randy and a couple of other people, they took them, not aside, but went and visited with them and said, unfortunately, because of code and this and that, we're going to have to move you. We're going to have to push you out of town or out of the city limits and into the county, more deeper into the county. But you'll be safer. And by you doing this and working with us, we will work with you and we will provide you with some assistance, financial assistance, and some food stamps and this and that. But you have to work with us. You have to do what we say. And this family that was next to them and they had become really good friends with, all kind of agreed on, all right, we've got 2 kids, we've blown through our savings now, this and that, and you will be safer. That was the thing that Randy said. You're going to be safer, which was the furthest thing from the truth, because once they were moved from the city limits out into the county region of Santa Cruz, where there are woods, where there are mountains, and when I say there is a forest and there is, mountain preserves out there, large hiking trails that are listed on all trails, I was not aware of this until he was telling me all this, I'm like, Santa Cruz, wait, has mountains and woods, and, unless you live there, you don't know it. So they one day wake up and there is a couple of large white cargo vans that pulled up into this encampment. California government plates on them. And they are told, hey, like we said, today's the day. It's time, undo your tents. We're going to drive you out so you don't have to, worry about anything. We're going to drive you out there. Those of you who do have vehicles, follow the vans. But, you're going to be safe, and it's going to be a much better standards for you. We've put porta potties out there for you. And, like having a porta potty in the middle of the freaking woods is beneficial. Yeah. I mean, yes, it is, but, so they take down their stuff, and as they are doing this, his fiance Sam kind of makes notice that the gentleman that they had been meeting with all this time, this caseworker, is acting really shady, and pushy. Like, let's hurry up, guys. You know, we got this amount of time. It's going to be so much better for you. But just not the same personality he had for the months leading up to this right now. So prior to this occurring, Sam and Randy had a Toyota RAV4 that they ended up selling a couple of months before this occurred, so they could have some money to get by. They couldn't rent an apartment because of the closures and everything. And they didn't even get enough money to rent an apartment for the amount their vehicle they had gotten for their vehicle. So he at this point is kicking himself in the ass for that. The family that has the two kids, they have a caravan, and they were going to ride with them out to this encampment that the Santa Cruz County had provided. You know, they made sure, these caseworkers made sure that it looked like, you know, this was something glorious, you know. But that was stopped really quick. You know, they're going to go in their own vehicle. You're going to get into our vans. They'll follow us. And, you know, whoever participates will get vouchers. And this and that. We've brought in some food bank essentials, some toiletries and whatnot. So anybody who participates willingly will receive, and those of you who don't participate and want to not move forward and refuse to vacate the area that you're at will have X amount of days before you will be prosecuted and jailed. So it's a no-brainer for Sam, Randy, and a few of these people that they had met. They load up into the van. They are kind of forced to sign some documents. You know, it almost looked like non-disclosures, like we are not responsible for this. If this happens, this and that. But you do understand that, you know, we are providing you with this. And so they drive out to this just remote part of Santa Cruz County that butts up to another county. I think it's Felton County. And there's just deep woods, a lot of hiking trails, and they get out there. They see that there's like 6 porta potties, an area that appears to have just been recently cleaned up. A lot of brush removed, this and that. And they were, you know, this is where you'll be. For those of you who do not have vehicles, we'll come and check on you. Just the real kind of feeding them their own demise, almost, if you will. And the family, sure enough, shows up. They're taken aside, and Sam noticed that the mom, who she was very good friends with during the months prior to, had this really weird look of concern on her face. So later on during the night, that's my cat, sorry. Later on during the night, their first night after they get all their stuff set up, and Sam had asked the mom, why did you act and why did you look so concerned when they brought you aside and you were signing those paperwork, those waivers that we had to sign as well. And she just said simply, something didn't really feel right about it all. And I really can't discuss the arrangements that we have. Otherwise, we will lose what we are going to get. And so she's kind of like, what do you mean what you're going to get? Obviously, Sam said, obviously, if they could get a home or an apartment, they were the ones that should have gotten it first because they had kids. But, if they're going to provide shelter for them and not live in the woods, shouldn't they provide shelter for others that are willing to work, that had jobs, that, pretty much can prove that they lost everything? The husband of the woman ends up talking to Randy, and later on in the night, they got their campfire set up. Sam had gone to bed, so did this guy's wife with the kids. And they're talking. Out of the blue, the guy said something like, I guess we got to wait about a week, maybe 2, before we move, before they put us up in a place. Hopefully, we are close to you and Sam. And Randy's kind of taken back, like, what do you mean in a place? And he kind of realizes that, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have said something. And come to find out that the family, because they had children and they were going to be given like a hotel room, but they had to wait a couple weeks for everything to kind of pan out. Government funds and such to pay for this and that. And which is kind of weird because, and this is per Randy, it's kind of weird because that county should have not had to wait for any kind of state money or state funding to put anyone up with, a home, especially with a family, with even what's going on right now, what our country is going through right now with this, mass amount of people coming in and getting put up, in hotels and motels and this and that. Yet these are families that have to wait. So they kind of he gets this weird feeling like something is off about the documentation, the caseworkers, just the whole kind of perception of who this guy was that kept coming in and saying everything's going to be all right and, we're here to help you. After that moment was not what it was before. And he had a lot of kind of doubt in his own head. So they've got their tents and cars put up in the area. There's a bunch of other little tents and a few of the, I guess, once again, anyone can be homeless. So do not take this like I'm insulting anybody or looking down upon anybody, because I'm not. But the people that really don't give a shit, I guess, best way of, people with a criminal background, history, and whatnot, and will still do crime and bad stuff regardless of the position they're put in. Like, Sam and Randy are in the position, just like this couple with their kids are in the position of the world shuts down, they lose their job. With the guy and the kids and his wife, the wife didn't work. She stayed home with the kids. Daycare is very expensive nowadays. And he was the only one with a job. So when he got let go, it was just tragic. So along this kind of wall where the porta potties would be, there's maybe 5 tents of the riffraff, I guess, for lack of better term, and that is Randy's term, and he was the one living this. You could smell marijuana. Even though there were porta potties, people were still acting really, really gross. There had been needles found and such. Just a predicament in a place where these poor little kids should never have been exposed to, unfortunately, and the only people to blame is the government. Couple nights go by just fine, days are fine, and they realize that the caseworkers who came every other day aren't coming now. They're waiting, and Randy kind of says to Sam, maybe it's because they gave us the food, they gave us the essentials, whatnot, that they're not coming as often. They got us out of the city where, now we are not an eyesore or a burden on the people that have succeeded still or whatnot. And, so he's just kind of sketched out that there's something up with the paperwork these guys signed with what we signed. Why couldn't we drive with our friends? And why aren't these people coming back often anymore? So a couple days go by, and one of the riffraff, and I'm not insulting them, I'm just, lack of a better term, and that's what Randy called them. One of the guys had gone out, and people assumed that he was looking for firewood. And that was another thing. They had to sign waivers about campfires, even though they were put out in the woods where, why the hell wouldn't you have a fire? So they think that this poor guy has gone out and looking for firewood. His girlfriend and other buddy that are all in this one tent together are starting to act a little sketch. They come up to their camps. Have you seen, my boyfriend? And they say his name, which Randy or Sam don't remember, but, no, we've never talked to you guys. You guys are scary, and I guess the one guy that camps with the guy and the girl who is missing, the guy that's missing, but his girlfriend and the friend there, I guess that guy that is present now had stolen from some of the people in the encampment when it was within city limits and stuff. So, these are kind of not really trustworthy people. Is this a ploy to get us, to like them or whatnot, and then have them steal from us later? So he goes out, the buddy goes out and gets fed up because nobody has volunteered or said, let's go find him. And he just kind of storms off and starts hiking. The female apologizes, I'm really sorry. He's normally not like this, and that. And about an hour goes by, and it's starting to get a little darker. It's fall time in California, and he comes just running out of the woods, screaming something about his friend. He's hurt real bad. We got to go help him, but there's something out there with him, and I don't know what it is. Randy looks at Sam, looks at the couple, and the husband and Randy start talking, and should we go and help? And Randy's now kicking himself in the ass because it's only been, 2.5, 3 years since they've moved to California, but he can't carry a firearm legally. And if he even could and had one, they would not be allowed in this encampment. That was part of the thing of this non-disclosure, or whatever you want to call it, the rules of this area. And so he's like, we're going to go out. This guy's screaming that his buddy's hurt real bad, and there's something out with him. I don't have a weapon at all, I got a knife, I got a pocket knife, but I'm not a hunter, I'm not this, I'm not that. The dad that is good friends with Randy and such says, hold on, I'll be right back. Goes into his caravan and is in the back, and he's messing with something, and he comes back with, he's got a pistol, and he says, don't let anyone know I have this. Don't say a word to your girl. I won't say a word to my wife. Just let's go and see if we can find this guy. And if we do have to make contact, whatever, maybe it's a ploy to set us up and have us go out into the woods and get robbed. There's a whole bunch going through Randy and this gentleman's head right now. So they tell the guy to lead the way. You walk ahead of us, lead the way. And that's what they do. And they get probably a half a mile. He said it was about 1.5 miles. But I did like a schematic, and it could be 1.5 miles, but Randy's not really sure exactly because he's not a long distance runner, hiker, or whatnot, so he doesn't know distance like that unless you're in a car. But they're a ways out, and it took about 15-20 minutes to get to where they were. That the guy freezes in front of them, and the husband here says, what do you see? What do you see? And he gets out his pistol, just a revolver, a .44 revolver, and he's got it down, and he's like, what do you see? And he's looking around, and Randy's now looking around because they can see ahead of them. He's not moving. They think that this is where they're going to get set up and jumped, but this guy doesn't know we have a pistol. So, we've got an advantage here. All of a sudden he turns and he just starts to run, and he goes between Randy and the husband here, and he's gone. Like, he's gone. He doesn't say a lick. He just turns and runs. So, confused, they walk up a little bit to where he may have been standing, and they're looking around trying to figure out what did he see. We don't see anything in front of us. Is there anything on the side of us? Where's his buddy? And they look over into the woods, and they see the guy, this guy's friend. He is upside down, hung in a tree. Like, he's just draped almost, and his body is bent at just this really nasty photo memory, photo memory. He's bent. There's blood. There looks to be, a lot of kind of gouges and tears. He's not just hanging upside down by his knees. He's bent and ripped apart. They run back to the camp and notify Sam and the wife of what they just witnessed. They can hear the girl and the guy that was just with them kind of crying and being very emotionally distraught about their friend being dead, hanging upside down in this tree, like his body is pretzel bent. They make the decision to call law enforcement, and the dad is like, I gotta hide my gun now. Let's just hide it where it was. Don't say a word about me having it. And his wife kind of gives him that dirty eye. Why do you have it? Why do you have a gun with us? What do you need it for? In her head, that look, what do we need a gun for? And law enforcement shows up about an hour before it's dark. They're escorted out to where the body was. And as they're looking around, the Randy and the dad went with the police officer. The guy that was in the lead, his friend there, he is not, I guess he was questioned, but he didn't come with them for some reason. It was Randy and the dad. They get to the area where the body is, and they're told to wait, step back and wait. Don't contaminate the scene. They're looking around, and there's debris in this area, and what appears to be large canine-like feet, and you could tell that they were bipedal. They were not quadruped. He looks at his buddy Randy, looks at the dad and says, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Look at on this trail. They're on a trail, mind you. If these are, that big and that's what did that to him, I sure as hell hope that it's not out here with us right now. Law enforcement makes a call, and right at dark, another unit comes out with a coroner. Body's placed in a body bag. It nearly falls apart as it's getting pulled out of the tree. It was such a horrific attack. It's bagged up, and they're carrying it out. They're like, should we leave? What should we do? Randy's like, you got family. You've got a family. Why don't you just get in your car, pack everything that you've got out here, get in your car and get the hell out of here. Whatever did that to him and what we just saw is out there still. You've got kids, just drag your ass and go. The dad's like, I can't leave you and Sam behind. My wife and I had already talked, and if we had gotten any kind of shelter, we were going to invite you and Sam to stay with us until everything was feasible. So they really had a good bond, and the dad refused to leave. So they're sitting there. They made the decision. Law enforcement has left after interviewing everybody, and they make the decision to, let's stay here one last night, pack everything up when, it's almost time to sleep, but just so everything is set, put your shit in our vehicle, and, the last thing that you'll need to do is undo your tent. You can throw that in the back, and we've got the 2 back seats in the van, and we're good. We'll get out of here. Daybreak. So they get back and they're just relaxing. The wives, Sam and the wife, are asking questions, and they're both being kind of standoffish about everything, not really wanting to answer anything. Pitch black now, and they hear just the loudest howl ever imaginable. It shook them right to their core. And I've heard people say that. I've never never had, whatever we experienced in 94 didn't hit me in my chest. It was, the infrasound, or whatever you want to call it. So this howl just erupts, and the dad gets his .44 revolver out of the back of this caravan. He tells his kids to get in the van, lay down in the van, go to sleep there. You're fine. It's just a dog. The wife, Sam, and Randy are all sitting outside of this van, looking in the area. Everybody in this encampment is kind of on high alert after what they just heard and what had just taken place. The howl, there's no more howls. People are, going ape shit. And probably 20 minutes goes by. Everything starts to calm down a little bit. The girl and the guy are still worked up. They can hear it. Randy gets up and says, to Sam, stay here with these guys. I got to use the restroom. He gets into the porta potty, and he's sitting down in the porta potty. And as he sits and he starts doing his business, he hears this just tremendous howl, and it sounds like it's right outside of this porta potty. Like he's here and it was right here, but the porta potty was around him. He freezes instantly and decides, I can't go to the bathroom now. Gets up, pulls the drawers up, and looks through those little air vent cracks that you can see. And he's trying to look out of them, but it's dark and he can't see anything. But he smells this really bad odor of kind of dirty, rotten garbage, with urine and, like someone peed on a carpet in a hot day. It's just this really raunchy, terrible scent. And he hears a growl. So he's standing up and he's looking out, and he smells the smell, and he hears a growl, and it's right there. Just right there. He's now thinking, what's outside of this porta potty? I'm not safe in here. Is Sam, do they know what's going on? Do they have any clue of what's going on? He hears a vehicle start, and he hears this, it's coming at him. He can see lights through, and there's a horn blast, and a round is fired from a gun. And he hears this kind of thump and a growl, and he hears something running away back into the woods. And he hears the dad of this small family yell his name, Randy, get the hell out here. We're going. We're getting the hell out of here right now. Leave your tent. Sam put all of your shit that is valuable to you in the van. Just let's go. Let's get out of here. And he yells back, all right, is it safe? Is it safe? It's over on this side of me. It's over on this side of me. The dad yells out, you're good, you're good. He gets out, jumps in the van. They back out and they drive away. They actually drive back to the city of Santa Cruz itself, and they pull into it's either a CVS or a Walgreens. He doesn't remember which, but they pull into the parking lot of it, and somehow the kids are asleep. Like, somehow they didn't even hear the howls. So they park in the parking lot, and kids are asleep. Randy's in front with the dad. Sam and the wife are in the back. They're talking amongst themselves, being as quiet as possible. Randy then starts to ask questions like, what was that? What did you hear? What did you see? And the dad of the kids looks at Randy and says, it looked like a werewolf. It looked just like a werewolf. It might have been someone in a costume. It might have been a Bigfoot, but to me, it looked like a werewolf. Sam and the wife both pipe up and say, that's 100% what it was. It was a goddamn werewolf. Sam, at that point, says, because TikTok and all that was pretty popular at this point, and people were talking about skinwalkers, even though if it was anything, it would have been a shapeshifter with the name of the Navajo, or with the name of the local native tribe in that area. But she says maybe it was a skinwalker. But he hit it, he shot at it, it hit it, and it ran away like it had gotten stung by a bee. You were a good distance from it, but it should have dropped. It was a 44, and right where he hit it, he said, I hit it dead center mass. And it took off running back to the woods. So they decide, we're gonna sleep here for the night. Randy gets in the back seat with Sam. The mom and dad are in the front. The kids are all the way in the back with that kind of bench seat made like a bed. He said that at that point in time, even though they were not safe, that was the safest night he had in a couple of months, because everything just felt different that night. The kids are secure. They're secure. They're in a van, but they're semi-comfortable, semi-safe. They make the decision, we'll go to camp in the morning. We'll drive back out. We'll get your tent. We'll figure this out. The husband states, I've got family just north of us right here. And, if we can get there, I'm sure they'll help us. Randy and Sam are like, we don't want to impose on you. Don't worry about us. We'll be okay. Just get our tent and then we'll figure something out. But we don't want to go back to that area. They drive up. Their tent it looks like it had been gone through. Like, someone laid a wallet out in the ground with $100 bill in it. Just everything's torn right to, but there are no claw marks. There are no marks of any. It was clearly done by human hands. Shit's broken. They're missing some blankets and they're missing some totes. Stuff that could have fit in the back of the van, they would have been okay with. Sam starts getting really upset they end up leaving, and they end up driving for about 2 hours. So that trip brought them just outside of San Jose, California, to a little kind of town, Los Gatos, and the father had family that lived out there. His aunt and uncle lived out there, and they had off their garage, kind of like a in-law home. It was a 2-bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and they asked, can our friends stay here? A whole bunch of crap happened at this encampment that we were at, but we're not safe. There's a lot of bad people there, and what Sam and Randy, because this in-law home or in-law apartment, I guess it would be, was above the garage, the wife and husband with their kids was up there, and they had the extended family or whatever had set up like a bed and an old couch, stuff from their home, in this garage to where Sam and Randy could stay, use the bathroom upstairs at the in-law apartment, and this and that. So they had stayed there for about a year until things got better, and they ended up, they're still friends, the husband, wife, Sam and Randy. He explicitly stated, I don't want you to share their names, but they now, Randy and Sam, live in San Jose. He is a chef. But when they went back to the encampment and realized that their tent had been gone through and a lot of their stuff had been stolen and just ransacked. The things that Sam and the husband and wife put in the van, because when Randy went to the bathroom, the decision was kind of made well before the Dogman had come out of the woods that, we're not safe here. Whatever happened may happen again. It may happen to us, our kids, you guys. So, we're just going to go to my aunt and uncle's. You guys are welcome to come with us. This is, our last ditch effort. Hopefully they'll allow us to stay. We'll explain the situation and this and that. But then when they get to the aunt and uncle, anyway, so that morning of, the caseworker is there. And this is where Randy 100% believes, and Sam believes, that the government was aware of these creatures being out there, and that it was almost as if this little encampment was designed and put there to get rid of the homeless population that was in the Santa Cruz area during 2021. The caseworker was there, and there was a couple other people there that worked for the county. And when they had pulled back in, they're looking through their tents. The caseworker had come up to them and said, where did you guys go? We came out to make sure that you guys were okay because of the death in the woods. It's crazy that he did that to himself. That was the end game or end of the what happened was this guy did that to himself. He offed himself in the woods. But the caseworker didn't realize that Randy and this dad were the ones that were out there and found him. Randy then spoke up and goes, I don't know how he could have bent himself in half. But he didn't do that to himself. So that was a big red flag. But then when the caseworker realized that they were packing up and getting ready to depart, the statement was, if you leave this location, we will be forced to close all of your county assistance, any kind of help that you get from us right now. You are safe here. We don't know why you're leaving. Just, if you didn't get attacked tonight, but, we'll give you a couple $100 in food stamps a month for you to stay until you get attacked. That's what they got out of that, So that the last ditch effort was to go to this couple's in-law family, their aunt and uncle, and thank God everything got set for them. The husband and wife and their kids had a small little apartment to live in, and Randy and Sam had it was a two-car garage, so there was a car in there, a vehicle already parked in there, but one of the car parks was cleared out. The car was out in the driveway, and a bed, a couch, was set up for them, a little table, so they could live, which was better than being in a tent. The restroom is upstairs, and they're good friends with this couple still to this day, like I said. Couple nights go by, and they're at the aunt and uncle's. They're getting settled, getting to meet the extended family and such. And there's a communication barrier. The dad is Mexican Spanish speaking, bilingual speaking. His aunt and uncle are like second generation Mexicans, so that's what they speak. But they end up talking one night. There's kind of like a little breezeway with a patio off the side and a little fire area. Sam, Randy, the dad, the mom, and the aunt and uncle all the kids are sleeping. They're just sitting outside, relaxing, and that's when the dad tells the uncle and aunt what was seen that night, and the uncle then, said in this kind of, which Mexican Spanish is different than regular Spanish, but pretty much said a wolf man, lobos, whatever the name of man is in Spanish. I don't know. I didn't take Spanish, but said in Spanish, wolfman. No, not skinwalker, wolfman. And that was that conversation. And he, to this day, is thankful for, that friendship that was forged at this homeless encampment with this husband and wife and the kids. But because they left, here we're gonna lie and say this guy did this to himself. You know, he hanged himself off a clothes hanger, you know, lack of a better term, or you know what I'm trying to say with YouTube. But Randy then says, well, how the hell did he bend himself in half? You know, and what tore him apart? He didn't do that to himself. And then, well, if you leave, we're going to take your, you know, the county assistance ends. No matter where you are, you could still be in the county, but you're leaving this location and we have to end your assistance, which was not much. It was something, but it wasn't worth, you know, dealing with that on top of, you know, what happened in the woods that night. They leave and their shit gets, you know, ransacked. So it's like definitely not the place where you want to be. But without any doubt in Randy and Sam's mind is the government did know that these things were out there. There was no surprise in the police officers' eyes when they saw this body, and how the county worker was acting. You know, why didn't he come up that night? Or you know, he waited until the next day, bright and early. But you'll lose your assistance. You better stay here. Be food for the dog, man. You know, and he to this day thinks that maybe half of the people that were there maybe are alive still, because the feeling was they were put there for it to be the end game for them, and just, you know, get rid of the undesirables, get rid of them, and we have the perfect tool to do that, and no one will ever question us because we know what's going on. The outside world doesn't. But it's just a really evil thing. And judging from how that guy acted, that caseworker was acting, why wouldn't Randy and Sam and this husband and wife think that, you know, it was all a government? And, you know, working harder, but not really, on getting the family with kids out of there quicker, you know, but you still have to wait a little bit of time, you know. Make sure your kids stay in the encampment area and don't wander too far off into the woods, and then everybody will be fine. Try to sleep in your van. You know, that's one of the big reasons why those kids were sleeping in the van that night. They were already in the van. You know, they had the seats fold down to make a bed, kind of. And that's what that caseworker said. Use your van, you know, for safety and for your children. You know, if you have to sleep in a tent, at least they're safe from harm's way. Just make sure it's locked. No one can get in. But, you know, if you're not going to be Dogman food, we'll just take your assistance and shit from you. That's disgusting. It's truly disgusting. So, and I don't know. Thanks, Randy. Thank you, Sam. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you guys. Randy, once again, is cooking. San Jose, California. His fiance stays home and is expecting in the next couple of months. But, you know, it's crazy that you've got different walks of lives in this encampment, and the government, that caseworker, the county government, state government knew these things were out there. But because you are homeless, just regardless of what happened, you are undesirable. So, we're going to put you in this area where hopefully we can get rid of you and keep moving more of you out here to keep getting rid of you. It's disgusting.
And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed today's second bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.